I don't hear me. I hear me. Okay. Is there a cough button on this thing? Is there a cough button on this thing? I doubt it.
No, it's just off and on.
You know. I'll just cover it yeah. Lean the other way. All right. Now it sounds better. All right. How is everybody? This may be a short class today. Let's see how long my voice lasts. I got 2 bottles of water. Took enough Dayquil to kill a small child. And yesterday I had 0 voice, so I was really worried. I'm sitting there and my wife says something, I just point. I had nothing. And at one point she said, because I'd gotten some pants, and she goes, "You mean hang those up?" And I literally went, because I couldn't say, "Hang them up, please." But so far so good. I got some nurses over here in case I fall out. And sorry, although it's no longer Nurses Week, so I don't have to be nice to them anymore. This is and I even had pyrotechnics up here because I knew, well, if they can read what I'm saying, it's not so bad. It's not working. So we're going to do this a cappella as it is. So welcome. Because I got 2 bottles of water. We're going to get through this. So we've been talking about we've talked about some folks that when God said go do something, their reaction was, "Are you sure you mean me?" Because of doubts, of biases, of just complete lack of confidence. We talked about Moses last week, and I think Moses was convinced he was a stuttering idiot. And it's like, there are 1,000 guys that are better than me, Lord. What are you coming to me for? And of course, God knew what he was doing. So we're going to talk today about the ultimate pushback on God, and that's Jonah. So we're going to be in Jonah today. We all kind of know this story, but there's some things I know we can learn from Jonah, and things I found that in my life, a lot of times the best teaching is when I see the things not to do. Sometimes learning by example is great, and I've had great mentors over my life, in my professional career, that taught me how to be a better administrator. And excuse me, the opposite has also happened, where I've had some horrible bosses that I've said, if I ever get into that position, I'm never doing that. And I try to remember that when I find myself nearly doing that. So, why is this an important topic? I was doing some research. Matter of fact, I had cool charts and graphs to show you, because I live in data. I love a pie chart. Administrators love pie charts. If you don't know that by now, we love pie charts. We love bar charts. We love trend lines, because we're nerds like that. And there was research done by the Pew Group that less than half of Americans identify themselves as Christian in 2021. The number is dropping. That's not a good trend line. So there's a lot of pushing back on God to the point where, excuse me, a point where more don't say they're Christian than do. So, also, more recently, a Gallup survey asked all faiths, but I just looked at Protestant/Christian, and 43% of those professing to be Christian go to church once a week or every week or 2 or 3 times a month. So 43. So that means, and seldom was like 15%, and then never was the rest of it. So nearly half are at never, yet they profess to be Christian. So there's a lot of pushing back on God. Is it willful? Is it just situational? Who knows? I mean, I've always heard what scares people away from Christianity would be Christians because of personality conflicts or we are imperfect people, and if we're held to a standard of perfection, we are horrible at hitting that mark. I know I am. So Jonah is kind of that wrapped into a singular biblical character where God says to Jonah, and he doesn't hint, he says to him, I need you to go do something. And Jonah willfully says, So let's open up to Jonah 1. So I was hoping you could read along with me on the board, but hopefully you can hear me without getting too much water. So in Jonah 1, we'll start in verse 1. The word of the Lord came to Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, the great city, and cry against it, for their wickedness has come up before me. But Jonah rose up to flee to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. So he went down to Joppa, found a ship that was going to Tarshish, paid the fare, and went down into it to go with them to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. Okay, so Jonah not only said no, but Jonah went the absolute opposite direction. And we're about to see what happens because he chose that particular path. Verse 4, the Lord hurled a great wind on the sea, and there was a great storm on the sea, so that the ship was about to break up. And the sailors became afraid, and every man cried to his God, and they threw the cargo which was in the ship into the sea to lighten it for them. But Jonah had gone below into the hold of the ship, laying down and fallen sound asleep. So the captain approached him and said, How is it that you are sleeping? Get up, call on your God. Perhaps your God will be concerned about us so that we will not perish. Each man said to his mate, Come, let us cast lots so that we may learn on whose account this calamity has struck us. So they cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. Then they said to him, Tell us now, on whose account has this calamity struck us? What is your occupation? Where do you come from? What is your country? From what people are you? He said to them, I am a Hebrew, and I fear the Lord God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land. Then the men became extremely frightened, and they said to him, How could you do this? For the men knew that he was fleeing from the presence of the Lord because he had told them. So they said to him, What should we do that the sea may become calm for us? For the sea was becoming increasingly stormy. He said to them, Pick me up and throw me into the sea. Then the sea will become calm for you, for I know that on account of me this great storm has come upon you. However, the men rowed desperately to return to land, but they could not, for the sea was becoming even stormier. when they called on the Lord and said, "We earnestly pray, O Lord, do not let us perish on account of this man's life, and do not put innocent blood on us. For you, O Lord, have done as you have pleased." So they picked up Jonah, threw him into the sea, and the sea stopped its raging. Then the men feared the Lord greatly, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows. And the Lord appointed a great fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was in the stomach of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. And this is part of the story we all know as kids, right? Jonah and the big fish. But we're going to talk about is what got us here. Because there's a lot to unravel here. So, my first question for discussion is, what was God's order for Jonah? Pretty straightforward. And he didn't drop subtle hints. He didn't just throw shade on Nineveh. He went, "These people are wicked. I need you to go there and start preaching." Very clear. That's just very clear. No ambiguity whatsoever. I think even I would have gotten the message. I'm pretty thick-headed. So, go to Nineveh, preach against it. 2 things. Done and done. Should be easy, right? Well, how did Jonah react? He didn't just say no. He ran the other way. Like you have a scene where there's a sign that points to Nineveh. There's a sign that points to Tarshish. He picks the Tarshish road. And we all know that he caught a boat. Not only do I need to get away, but I'm going to take a boat that gets me further away. Paid out of his own pocket. I mean, we're getting more and more willful, aren't we? It's like, he wanted to see, found a boat, got on the wrong boat. I'll tell you, one of my biggest fears when I fly is getting on the wrong airplane. I will check that flight number like 20 times. Make sure I'm at the gate. Because when I was in Orlando, they changed my gate like 3 times. We kept moving. And so I just knew I was going to end up in like Columbus, Ohio, or anywhere but home. Well, he didn't just accidentally get on a boat going to Tarshish. He found a boat that was going to Tarshish. Paid his way on it, climbed in, and took off. And then went down below and did what? Just fell asleep. Now, you hear criminologists talk about how you can tell if you got 3 suspects in a room and you let them sit long enough, more often than not, the guilty one just goes to sleep because they relax. They've been caught. Yes, sir. Sir. Let's just get on the other side of the world. I don't want to even know. I can't spell Nineveh, much less be able to see it. And so and I'm sure Jonah knew this. They at least knew enough to know that. What's the boat I can get on that'll get me the furthest away from Nineveh as possible? And of course, promptly goes to sleep. And then what happens? Well, we end up getting to fish.
God tries to wake him up.
He wakes up everybody except Jonah, apparently. And I think we can't minimize this enough. It was, how bad does a storm have to be to scare sailors? who do this is for a living. They do this all the time. They've been through storms. Maybe a sailor on his first voyage, but these are all seasoned sailors, and they're freaking out. They're pitching stuff out of the hold. They're praying to their gods. I'm sure there were a lot of pagan gods evoked. And there's only one cat that's not doing any of this. Still asleep. That's Jonah. So the captain wakes him up and says, hey, you see all this? I need you to help us out here. And of course, his way of helping out is pray to your God, whoever he is. Now, this is where it gets interesting. And I'm not sure why he does this. But Jonah pretty much fesses up, doesn't he? Tells him everything. It's like, I'm probably the cause of this. It's interesting that he has that insight, considering he just hopped a boat to get as far away from what he was asked to do as possible. But that's what he does. Well, he even said, pitch me over. And they're like, no. You're right. You think they made some sailors have been like, sounds like a good idea. And they call him an innocent man. So they kind of get it. But God's reaction was, they even cast lots, thinking, well, let's figure out who this is. And the lots fall on Jonah too. So now Jonah's told them, and the lots have told them, that it's Jonah. And it's pretty clear. And they still don't want to pitch him over. They still don't want to pitch him over. So, this is the part that we all know about. Jonah has said, come on, throw me over. As soon as you do, the storm gets better. I don't know how Jonah knew this. Has anybody got any ideas of how Jonah might have known the second I hit the water, it's all going to be good? Considering he had just said to God, no, and ran the other way.
Well, there has to be an appeasement. When you defy God, there is always a punishment. Now, the kind of punishment, mental, physical, emotional, whatever, there is a cost to pay.
Mm-hmm.
And Jonah is a smart man. He knows God said, okay, now it's your turn.
Because let's just think on this for a second, and of course this is sheer speculation because it doesn't say. Why did God pick Jonah to begin with? Why did God say, I need you to go do it? And there's lots of people he could have picked. I'm sure there are tons of prophets floating around, tons of godly people floating around, but he picked Jonah. And I mean, we can speculate on why, because obviously Jonah had talent, had intelligence, and up until now, I assume had some bravery. Or did God say, I need to toughen Jonah up a little bit? Because that's what we find out, isn't it? Why did Jonah react the way Jonah reacted? And it gets into that. Now, also, there's a rest of the story, right? In Jonah chapter 2, we're in the fish. In Jonah chapter 3, God gives him a second chance. And in chapter 4, with Nineveh turning it around, God decides not to punish them, right? God's ready just to pop them off the face of the earth. Which Jonah is for or against?
He's okay with that.
Oh, he's good with that. I'll go talk to them if that means at the end of the day I'm the last one standing. And then God does what? Because Nineveh turns it around, God decides to not punish them. How did Jonah react? Anybody remember? He was just beside himself. Yes, sir.
A lot of people don't think about this, but a lot of people think that, like they would think that his being told about a fish as a punishment, but it seems like in the middle of a storm, he was about to drown to death, and God saved him by having him told about it.
Turned out pretty good, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he
Yeah.
was drowned and died.
I mean, I'm sure it was a little calmer inside the giant fish than it was. I mean, it does mention when he hits the water, the storm stops. Cold. But he's still in the water. And I'm sure he's in the middle of, he's nowhere near shore. Because remember, they were trying to get to shore and they couldn't. So, yeah. I'm sure Jonah, you've heard the phrase, come to Jesus? That's Jonah's come to Jesus moment, as it were. I'm sure there's a lot of time for reflection in a big fish headed down the wherever big fish go. So there's lots of things to learn from Jonah. I can relate to Jonah. There are times when I know what needs to be done and I just flat don't want to do it. I will admit that now. It's different things. It's not quite something this big, but I bet it's a lot of little things that added up to, like, be nice to this person, give this guy a sandwich. You know, little things. Smile. There have been some times I've caught myself just grinding it. Just head down, run into people in the hallway, don't even acknowledge them. In my phone because I'm 4 emails behind. And I had a mentor, a great, great director of mine that taught me catch everybody's eye in the hallway and smile at them. That'd be Hugh Brown. You've met him. Yes. He was a great teacher. And some days that's hard. I mean, just something simple like that. I'm sure this was hard. He hated Nineveh. There's no two ways around it. He hated the people. I can't even think of an analogy of God asking me to go somewhere. I don't really think there's anybody I hate that much. Where God says, I need you to go here. And your reaction is, no. Those people don't deserve a single breath of mine. But that's what happened here. Jonah's biased hatred for the Ninevans was so strong that he told God no.
You know, I can't help but wonder why.
That's a good question. Why?
What was it
Yeah.
about Nineveh that Jonah was willing to give up his soul to defy God? 'Cause that's pretty bad when you make that deliberate, conscious no.
I mean, that wasn't just no, it was like no.
Good expression.
Yeah. Mercy, no. We'll go with that one. I'm sorry, somebody else. Yes, ma'am.
The part of him going on the ship and being able to go to sleep has always bothered me. Because he directly defied God, and he's obviously a godly man. It bothered me that he could go on the ship and go to sleep. But that may be the reason he felt so relieved that he was not going to have to face these people that he hated so much. That relief he was able to, at that point, was able to go to sleep.
That relief he experienced because now he didn't have to go to Nineveh. Yeah, you get midship in the hold. It doesn't move much. Yeah. But he was definitely at peace with his decision, wasn't he? Because it allowed him to lay down and Just go to sleep. So, what can we learn from Jonah? That's the million-dollar question. And that's the one Bible class teachers like to pose when they need a drink of water. That's got to be first and foremost, is saying no to God never turns out well. It may initially turn out well. I'm sure the first few minutes of that journey, he was about as comfortable as he'd been in a long time. But kind of went downhill from there.
So, Jonah's mission was clear, like you said. Go to Nineveh, free.
Yeah.
You know that he had to be a man of God to start out.
Right. I mean, there was a reason why God picked him.
So
Yeah.
what do we as Christians do today? We say, well, just tell us what you want, God, and we'll do it. Do we?
Yeah, exactly. If God came to me in a bush, or a talking donkey, or all these other, a light on the side of the road, I mean, he's talked to people directly. And I'm sure that's very impactful. But if he did it to me, would I still be okay with that? That's a good question. I mean, some days I would like to know, just tell me what you need, because I'm kind of linear like that, where it's like, you tell me what you need, I'll get it done.
Give us the list, Lord.
Yeah.
Just give us the list. We check off the list. You know,
And then I wonder if,
we'll do the list.
and once I got the list, would I look at it and go, not doing this one. This one, this one I got. Yeah. Head to church Sunday morning. Got that. Boom. Done. Go talk to these people about Jesus. Oh, no, because they don't speak my language, or they don't like you, or whatever. Because there was a lot of political stuff going on. And the Syrians at that time were very powerful and not exactly the sweetest people on the planet. They were pretty brutal. If anything, he knew that he didn't like them. At best, he hated them. At worst, he was deathly afraid and says, the second I set foot on there, they're going to slaughter me too. Kind of going back to Ananias, we're going back to Moses, going back to that little concept of I'm not wanted there. It's another recurring theme among these people, is God asks them to go to places where they are very uncomfortable. So why does God take us out of our comfort zone? So we can grow. Why do we need to grow? What's wrong? What's wrong with us being just like we are right now? You know, let's just draw a line, get no worse, get no better. Just as is. You buy a car as is. And Jesus talks about that, doesn't he? I did an entire sermon one time on a lukewarm Christian. Where you're not hot, you're not cold. It'd be better to be cold than to be lukewarm. And what does God say I do with a lukewarm? Spit you right out.
It says he went down to Johnston.
Mm-hmm.
But where's Nineveh? I've been looking on my Bible maps and that doesn't have.
I'm not 100% sure. I know it's in the opposite direction of Tarshish. Yeah, but that's
Start looking there.
that's kind of my apex of knowledge, and well, and obviously there is no present day Nineveh, or we know about it. There still is a Joppa, though, I believe. I think it's still in Damascus. Yeah, I'm sure Nineveh was a lot closer. God wanted to pick somebody and said, I need you to go 5,000 miles to yell at somebody, when he probably picked Jonah because Jonah was right there. It's like, hey, Jonah, shoot across that river and take care of this, please. You know, but I'm not sure what else.
Also learning that God can use people whether they want to be used or not.
Mhm.
You know, Jonah gets knocked from something. He didn't want to preach them. He didn't want to, and when they did repent, he didn't want them to do that either. It
Right.
wasn't up to Jonah.
He did place a lot of parameters on this assignment. My way. Yes, sir.
Nineveh is on the east bank of the Tigris River in what is now see where Mosul is,
Hmm.
there, right? That's where the
And apparently that was a lot closer. So, yeah, I'm sure the Assyrians were bad people. To the point where they got God's attention, didn't they? They were, God, and God basically told Jonah, I'm going to destroy them if they don't turn it around. But, again, if they don't turn it around. And what's the assumption Jonah's making? They're not going to turn it around. I'm going to get there, and I'm going to just talk, and they're going to go, huh, whatever. And it's like, see, God, I tried. I did my part, checked the box, assignment complete, can I go home now? And then they did turn it around. And he did not react well. And how is Jonah not reacting well mirror us? How does Jonah's reaction to Nineveh turned it around? God said, okay, did their part, so I'm not going to destroy them. Jonah gets mad. So, is he any better than the Ninevans before? Oh, that's a deep question. Glad I thought of it. They didn't get what they deserved. And isn't it great that we don't? Isn't it great that I don't get what I deserve, which is, some days swallowed by a big fish would be a.
But did they not get what they deserve according to who?
Exactly. According to Jonah,
They didn't get what they
no. According to God, I mean, who was the ultimate judge here? God had said, these people are so bad that I'm going to destroy them if they don't turn it around. Because we are. And God, now he may not, I don't know, maybe he does, I don't know, target a complete country and go speak to these people. They don't turn it around, I'm going to, maybe he still does, I don't know, different ways. Like I said, I wish he would just holler at me and tell me kind of what he's got planned, and I'd be happy to accommodate him. But we don't have direct contact like the old days. We got about 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So I think there are 6 undeniable truths when we push back on God. We've talked about this first one a lot. We cannot run from God. He was trying to get as far that way as possible from Nineveh. Guess what? God found him. God knew the ship. It obviously wasn't a giant cruise ship. It was rowed and sailors, and I picture these old galleons you read about and see. God found him sleeping inside the boat. Cannot run from God. God knows. And isn't that a little frightening? Second thing, our actions affect others. What happened to the ship and the sailors. Big storm scared them. They were convinced they were going to die. They pitched everything overboard to lighten the ship, which is what you do when a desperate situation, because the whole point of the ship is to haul stuff from one side to the other. Throwing it out is not something you do lightly. Not something you do lightly. The third, God will get our attention. Boy, did he ever. How does he get our attention? Because I don't remember a burning bush or a talking donkey or a sign that says, hey, it's God. I need you. It requires us to be a little bit more insightful, doesn't it? How do we get there? How do we make ourselves better listeners to God? How do we do that? It requires study, it requires prayer, and it requires a lot of be still and submission.
But in the beginning, doesn't it require others? You don't get born knowing God other than through natural events.
Right.
So for it to get to the point that we're knowledgeable, that we're prayer, that we study, that we're be still, there has to be that ignition.
Something sparked it.
Somebody else, something else caused that spark.
This is where the chemistry nerd in me kicks in, where most biological chemical reactions require a specific catalyst. You take away that calcium, that magnesium, you take away that ion, that thing doesn't happen. Your cells don't get energy, you don't live. It's really simple. There's a certain exact catalyst that has to happen for that reaction to happen. We need a catalyst, don't we? Whether it be a friend, a parent, a preacher, and I'm sure some people would come on it by themselves. My father-in-law tried every church he could think of, and studied and listened and asked questions. And he pretty much came to it on his own. He was raised Catholic. Came to it on his own. So it does happen. But he was also a very godly, strong man because he put in the work. He put in the work. All right, number 4. Our pushing back, saying no, does not change God's will. God's going to do what God's going to do. Whether he uses us or someone else. He's allowing us to take part. He's allowing us to grow.
There's a little but here, Nineveh, good old Zach 12. They did push back that way, so there is a way to push back to God.
And there's lots of ways to half do it, right? You know, God wants us to do something, we just kind of do it. It's like, oh, I'll just get away with the bare minimum. And I don't think God likes that either. Or, you know, being so legalistic that it's like God says go to Nineveh. What if Jonah went to Nineveh? I'm in Nineveh. Okay, gotta go. And left, right? What if he took 2 steps onto the shore and said, God's mad at you, got on the boat and left? That's not exactly what God had in mind. Number 5, we cannot save ourselves. Those sailors were crying out to their different gods, and when they found out what the cause of the storm was, and then what happened to the sailors when they finally pitched him overboard and the storm just stopped. How did they react? Right. They went back and found their stuff they tossed over. But they decided that Jonah's God must be the God. Because they all made a sacrifice. How did they know to do that? And it's like they actually, at that point, knew kind of the rules. And that's how they reacted. So, isn't it funny how God uses Jonah being a complete idiot, and he changed the lives of these sailors? We cannot save ourselves, but God can save us. God saves Jonah, because you're right, being in the fish, it's still dry and there's oxygen, right? Apparently. Because he was there, 3 days? Before he... Oh, I'm having visions of I'm having visions of there was a VBS at Westside Church of Christ did, and they actually made a giant fish. And then there was these bunch of people. It's like a big mobile with people, and it was really cool. But just the vision of them spitting Jonah onto the stage just kept popped in my head, and it was outstanding. But literally, Jonah got spit up onto the shore. I don't remember, was it in Nineveh he got spit up? I'll have to go back and look. Because he ended up going to Nineveh. It'd be funny if God says, no, I need you at Nineveh. Blah, put him right on Nineveh. But I don't remember that actually happened, so strike that. Finally, we need help to be reawakened. Aren't we glad that, shouldn't Jonah be glad that God was patient with him? The second he bought his fare to that boat, he would have been dead to me. Just kind of that kind of betrayal, that kind of outward defiance would have been a deal breaker for me. I'm sorry. We need help to be reawakened. Because God is thankfully patient. Gives Jonah a second chance and has a kind of plan for all of us. Yeah, we may not be getting on a boat and going to Nineveh. Maybe we're getting on a plane going somewhere. Maybe we're getting in a car going somewhere. Maybe we're walking across the street to a neighbor's house. God's got a plan for all of us. He has a way to use all of us. So it falls on us to listen. Be still and know is a great verse. It's one of my favorites. Be still and know that I am God.
The good say was in the plan the whole time to be with the sailors, but we don't know what they got into search for later after they were murdered.
Who knows? Yeah, they get back to shore, maybe they start talking to people.
He hardened Pharaoh's heart.
And then... and maybe, just maybe, they did some great things. Maybe. You hope it turned out good for Jonah. We don't really get into, after Jonah got mad, what happened. All right, any other comments or questions? As always, I appreciate you holding me up today. We made it. I still have a little water left. I'm amazed we somehow got there. So thank you all very much.